The House of Horror, Part 2. Years after the tragedy, Sarah and Lily moved to a big city, far from the memories of that house. They started a new life. Sarah worked as a photographer for a local newspaper, and Lily went to school. But the darkness of the past didn't leave them. One night, when Lily turned 8, Sarah heard a strange sound in their apartment. It was a whisper, the same one she had heard in the house on the hill. She got out of bed, but the hallway was empty. Her attention was drawn to the light coming from Lily's room. Feeling uneasy, Sarah walked in and saw her daughter sitting on the floor, drawing strange symbols with chalk.
Lily, what are you doing?
Sarah asked, trying to hide her panic. Lily looked up and replied in a calm but eerily mature voice.
Daddy said they're coming soon. He wants us to be ready.
Sarah felt her blood freeze. She decided to seek help from an occultist recommended by an acquaintance. His name was Morgan Vane, known for his knowledge of dark forces. People said he could communicate with the beyond, but only those who had lost all hope sought his help. When Sarah arrived, she was greeted by a dim room filled with ancient books, herbs, amulets, and animal skulls. Candles flickered on a table, and Vane sat in the center, studying an ancient text.
"You're Sarah?"
He said quietly without looking up.
Yes, but how do you know?
She asked, startled.
"You've brought heavy energy with you. Your dreams, the dark forces around you. Your husband's sacrifice. It's all connected and you want to know how to fight it."
Sarah took a deep breath and began recounting everything that had happened in the house. The strange shadows, spider-like creatures, the dwarfs, and those terrifying nights that ended with Kevin's death. Vane listened intently, occasionally nodding. When she finished, he stood up, took an old leather-bound book from the shelf, and opened it to a specific page.
"You've awakened something that should never have been disturbed. The house you lived in was a site of rituals. The previous owner, a notorious occultist, opened a door between our world and what lies beyond, and that door is not fully closed."
Terrified, Sarah asked.
What do I do?
Vane looked directly into her eyes.
"You'll have to go back there. These forces are tied to the house, but they're searching for a way out. If we don't stop it, they'll find a path into our world."
Sarah shook her head.
I can't go back. That place took my husband.
"I understand your fear,
Vane replied.
but it's the only way, and I'll go with you."
His voice was firm, and Sarah realized there was no turning back.
All right,
She whispered.
what do I need to do?
Vane wrapped the book in cloth and glanced at the candles burning on the table.
Face them directly, and if we're lucky, close that door forever.
Thus began their dangerous journey to the house where unimaginable horrors awaited. The journey, Sarah, Lily, and Professor Vane set off for the hill late in the evening. The sky was overcast, and the moon barely peeked through the clouds. Sarah gripped the steering wheel nervously while Lily sat quietly in the back seat, clutching an old doll. Vane studied ancient notes beside her, preparing for the ritual. The road was winding and deserted, with trees on both sides forming an eerie tunnel. They were halfway there when the car's headlights illuminated a figure on the road. It was tall, dark, with a distorted face and long limbs. Sarah slammed on the brakes, and the car shuddered to a stop.
What was that?
She exclaimed, looking back, but the figure was gone.
"Don't get out of the car.
Vane warned sternly, clutching the amulet around his neck.
It could be a harbinger of the dark forces."
Sarah drove on, but the road seemed endless. Soon, a strange sound, like knocking, came from the car roof.
What's that?
Lily whispered fearfully.
"Don't pay attention.
Vane warned again.
They're trying to scare us. It's an illusion."
But Sarah was already losing her composure. She stopped the car and turned on the hazard lights. As soon as they stopped, figures emerged from the darkness around the car. They were the same dwarfs with pale skin and spider-like limbs. Their hollow eyes stared into the car, and their long fingers scratched the windows. Lily screamed, clinging to Sarah.
Drive.
Vane shouted.
Step on the gas and don't stop, no matter what.
Sarah pressed the accelerator, and the car sped forward. But the figures didn't disappear. They ran alongside the car, their twisted faces reflected in the windows, their whispers echoing inside.
This is a trap.
Vane yelled.
They're trying to lead us astray. Don't look at them.
The road ahead began to change. It seemed steeper and narrower, and the trees leaned so close their branches scraped the car. Suddenly, the headlights went out, and Sarah had to drive almost blind.
We can't keep going like this,
she cried. Then, the tall figure appeared on the road again. Sarah screamed and swerved the wheel sharply. The car skidded off the road and came to a halt in a ditch.
Is everyone okay?
Vane asked, trying to calm them.
Lily.
Sarah cried, looking around. The girl was terrified but unharmed. But then, the sounds returned, whispers, the crunching of branches, heavy footsteps. Vane quickly pulled an amulet from his bag and began chanting. Suddenly, light radiated from the amulet, forming a protective circle that kept the creatures at bay.
This will hold them off, but not for long,
Vane said. We need to reach the hill. Despite trembling hands and overwhelming fear, Sarah managed to get the car out of the ditch. The figures gradually faded away, but Sarah knew this was only the beginning. When they finally arrived at the hill, the sky was pitch black. Nature itself seemed to hold its breath as they prepared to confront what awaited them. At the site of the old house, only charred ruins remained, but the energy of the place was palpable. Vane created a protective circle with salt, fire, and candles and began chanting to free Kevin's spirit and seal the portal to the beyond. Suddenly, the dwarfs and creatures Sarah had seen earlier reappeared from the darkness. They lunged at her and Lily, but as they approached the protective circle, they dissolved into thin air like smoke. Amid the chaos, Sarah saw Kevin emerge from the flames. His face was calm, his eyes filled with love.
Sarah,
He said,
thank you. Protect Lily.
Kevin gently touched his daughter, and Lily whispered tearfully.
Daddy.
Then, the light grew brighter, and all the otherworldly creatures vanished. Kevin disappeared too, but Sarah felt a sense of relief. Vane finished the ritual and said,
His spirit is at peace now, and the forces of this place will trouble you no more.
Back home, Sarah felt a weight lifted from her heart. Lily no longer had nightmares, and Sarah knew Kevin had become their invisible guardian. Though the pain of loss remained, they were finally able to start living again.